the story runs deep. From the port to the store where the whole world keeps. Every box got a mile, every mile got a cost. And the people in the middle know what time can toss. One delay, then 10 more calls. One small break can shake it all. Let's talk supply chain. From the factory floor to the trucks in the rain and the ship at shore.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. My team surprised me with that new intro to the show, but I think I like it. I want to know in the comments what you think about it. I also want to know where you're tuning in from. And if you're loving the conversation, we love a good fire emoji here. So we want to see that in the comments today because we've got a big show for you. We've got Matt from Loop joining me today, and we're going to be talking about a couple of different things. First, Greenland. That's going to come up at the end of the show, and you're probably wondering why. Well, it is a critical shipping route, apparently. But we're also going to be talking about AI. We're also going to be talking about what's happening in detention and demurrage. You're going to want to stick around for that because our news desk is going to give you the top stories on that. But of course, first, before we bring Matt up, I do want to give a shout out to the Secret Society of Supply Chain. That is our free membership group, and we've got executives from all over the globe in that group. And so go check it out, secretsocietyofsupplychain.com. I usually give a shout out at the beginning to all of our new members, but I think we just had 35 people join us within the last week, and that's going to take me a whole 2 minutes just to do that. So I want to give a shout out to the new members. Thank you so much for joining us, and we can't wait to see you in Secret Society of Supply Chain. All right, let's get to what's happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain. So we've got a brand new episode. If you have not gone to letstalksupplychain.com, you might want to take a peek because we have a new AI interactive podcast experience you can see on the screen there. You can get an executive summary on our podcast. You can also ask the podcast a question. Now, this particular newest episode is with Ed Burke and Marco from Deliver Direct, and we're talking about last mile. Now, if you have not listened to any of the episodes that we've done with Deliver Direct, you're going to want to go and take a listen, especially for your last mile. This is something that really has never been done before, and they're using a lot of the airline space to be able to do that and to give you one flat price. Go and check that out wherever you listen and watch the episodes over on the letstalksupplychain.com or on YouTube. Next, we are going live multiple times this week. I'm super excited. We've got a really, really big lineup for you. Now, live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, DC is going live with Digital Lab, where supply chain technology meets reality. Now, remember, Digital Lab, we set this show up so that you can see some micro demos of exactly what is out there on the market, so you can see if this is the right fit for you. So click the attend button, even if you can't attend live, and we will send you that recording. And then 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, Chris Hamley is going live with Performance Paradox. And he's talking about what separates good managers from great leaders. I just had him on the podcast. It came out last week. Go and check that out wherever you listen and watch the show, because we also talked about careers in supply chain. What does that look like, especially in the era of AI? And Chris was talking about going into companies and telling the executives to take the day off from meetings. And he gave us a really good example of what that actually means for your organization. So highly recommend you go check out that podcast. But again, click the attend button for 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, and we will send you the recording. And then Eric Johnson is back live 10 a.m. Eastern this Friday for TPM Today. Why forwarders are still window shopping for AI. This might be a question that I'm going to have for Matt, because I am not hearing this at all. I am hearing that people don't want to talk about AI anymore. They really want to make sure that they can implement. They want to take action today. But click the attend button to attend this LinkedIn Live. And we will send you the recording even if you can't attend live. And where else are we going to be in person? We have a workshop. DC is running a workshop in New York that is happening August 11th with the team at Viho. So if you want to understand your post-purchase delivery experiences and how you can design them better, this is the workshop for you. And we've put the link in the comments for you to register. I'm also going to be leading a panel discussion at the M&A Club September 16th and 17th in Chicago. So hopefully I can see you there. We've put the link to register in the comments as well. Then I'm also going to be recording podcasts on site at the Keller Logistics Summit. I'm going to be joined by quite a few power hitters in the industry, and you have your chance to sign up for this as well. It is free to attend September 23rd in Defiance, Ohio, and hopefully I'll see you there. Last but absolutely not least, we've got Manifest happening February 8th through 10th in Vegas. If you do not have your registration yet, make sure to head over there. They've got some early bird specials just for you so you can attend, and I'm excited to see you there. We're going to be recording podcasts on site there. So if you're interested in that, reach out to us and we'll let you know more about it. All right. Now it's time to go to Camille so that we can introduce Matt into the show.
We all know this scenario. You check a report, it seems fine, but your gut says otherwise, so you dig deeper. Luckily, you avoid disaster. Enter AI and automation, an efficient system, but without that gut feeling, it hands you a confident answer, even when it's dead wrong. And that blind spot, it's already hiding inside logistics, buried in PDFs, emails, and systems that don't talk. Matt McKinney grew up racing motocross. He learned to read chaos before he ever learned to fear it. That same instinct followed him to Uber Freight. There, he saw firsthand how outdated the payment system was. Eventually, he teamed up with engineer Xiaosu Liu. Nights and weekends, they built the first version of the fix. That fix became Loop. Loop is the industry's first logistics data platform. He built it with engineers pulled from Uber, Meta, and Flexate. Matt's core belief threads through everything he does. Fix your data first, and AI becomes your biggest unlock. Ignore it, and it can become your most costly mistake. Today, Matt and Sarah are digging into why AI is only as good as the data behind it. Matt, welcome to Thoughts and Coffee.
Hi, Matt. Super excited to have you on the show. Welcome. That was quite the introduction from Camille.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me. Yeah, and I love the introduction there.
Well, and we're going to be talking all about AI, but you've had an interesting journey to Loop. Why don't you tell us just a little bit more about Loop, and then we'll get into the poll of the week.
Certainly. Loop is a technology company that really focuses on organizing supply chain data. And our sole mission is to unlock all of this value that's trapped in the physical economy. Think of it like you're sitting on a couch and you're like, okay, how much money is under this couch that I don't know exists? That's what we find for you. And we do that in a couple different areas, but mainly in the back office where people are thrown at problems like auditing invoices, reconciling payments, certainly planning and settlement. And so we help automate that entire process, but most importantly, give that data back to the companies to help them make better decisions.
That's awesome. So I spent a lifetime in operations and freight. I was in the back office for a number of different years in warehousing, for ocean freight, all sorts of stuff. And I remember I had to, like all of the invoices I had to approve, and I had this stamp. I had to stamp it, and then I had to fill it out, right? You had to put the amount that you were approving and then the date that you were approving it. And then you had to sign it like you were signing right away. And I can just tell you, I talk to a lot of different technology platforms and things like that. This is one that I think would have changed my life forever in operations if I had had it back in, I'm going to date myself, but probably in like 2010.
Wow. Yeah, and I think the other thing is, Friday at 4:30, maybe you're approving those invoices and stamping them at a higher rate than you are, on Tuesday at 4:30. So AI is not just a technology that helps you be more efficient; it also helps you be more accurate.
Yes, which everybody needs. All right, let's get to our poll of the week. So we ask everybody a question every single Wednesday morning, and I'd love to talk to you about this. This poll was sponsored by Loop. So the question is, what's the biggest barrier to AI adoption in your logistics operations? Now we had 65 votes on this one. 35% of you said data quality in silos. 31% said AI trust and accuracy. 25% said skills gaps, and 9% said unclear ROI. Now, if you are watching, I'd like to know in the comments, if you didn't vote on this poll, what would you have chosen? Matt, is this surprising to you? What do you think of the results?
It's pretty squarely with what we see. I mean, the number one, and this is not new, by the way, the number one issue in supply chain is data.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the messiest and ugliest data in the industry in the world, and you're forced to make real-time decisions with this data. 60% of this data is offline. It's trapped in emails and spreadsheets and PDFs, and that data has not been organized for 90% plus of companies.
Right. Do you think we actually went paperless by this time? Like, because I remember when I was in operations, we were trying to go paperless, but it just wouldn't work because we had to send paperwork to customs. We had to send paperwork. So you said that it's trapped in emails and spreadsheets. Do you think it's also trapped in some sort of organizations that still use paper that haven't gone kind of paperless?
So many, especially in the US, but so many companies are still on paper, and there's good reason for it. And it's not just the paper, though. If you even have electronic but non-standard or unstructured data, like we mentioned, PDF, email, even some EDI that's semi-structured, but it might not be normalized because a carrier might be, or a vendor might be putting data in the wrong area, or it doesn't map to your data store. And so it's not just the actual form factor of where the data comes in and how it comes in, it's actually the intelligence to map it so that you can actually make sense. Because if you can make sense of that data, then AI can make sense of that data.
Yeah, it's so true. And then that also helps with the exceptions management that AI really helps us to do. Now, Joe Wilson made a comment. He said, I think all four are connected. Poor data reduces trust, which makes ROI harder to demonstrate and limits investment in people and skills. The organizations that make the most progress usually start by solving one meaningful business problem rather than trying to transform everything at once. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think that the AI wave we're in right now, companies are they have a higher appetite for full transformation, but the best transformations we see with we see with the companies that we engage is they focus on a specific area and then they expand from that area onward.
Yeah. And Jonathan agreed. They said that he said, I voted data quality in silos, but 3 of these 4 barriers share a root cause. And data is siloed because systems are not connected. Are you still finding that? I want to get into the market update. So you might be talking about that in the market update for the audience. But are you still finding that data is still siloed in a variety of different systems? And actually, I think we're even going to talk about that in our first article.
Absolutely. And it's siloed in, pick your 3-letter acronym, TMS, WMS. But I think mostly it's siloed in, tribal knowledge in people's heads as well, where you've got someone that's doing the same job every single day that lives in them. And so if they're out sick or they retire, that knowledge and that institutional IP went with them.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was actually talking to somebody yesterday on my podcast, and he was talking about logistics. He was talking about total landed costs. And as he was talking about it, there was some things that popped up in my mind, like the number you would use to turn kilos into pounds, which is 2.2046. I did it so many times repetitively that at 45 and like 10, 15 years later, I still remember what that number is, and I can calculate kilos into pounds, no problem.
It's a good skill to have.
Is it though? I'm not entirely sure. All right, let's get to the market update. So Matt, you are talking to a lot of people. You're talking to a lot of customers. What is top of mind for everybody right now? What is sort of like the sentiment of the industry?
A few different things. Number one is energy volatility. That is obviously an issue with ongoing war that we have. Forecasting your cost with energy volatility is really challenging. And so as companies are entering, some of the companies are entering peak or are, looking to forecast for the next few quarters. What does this energy volatility mean for them, and how can they predict it? How long is it going to stay elevated?
Right.
And a lot of the modeling that we've seen actually takes us back to the start of the Ukraine war. And so you can actually model similar spikes, although different, coefficient of the spikes, but also the prolonged energy cost and energy prices. You can actually look and compare against the different time horizons. So I'd say energy is a big one, and just the ability to forecast that into your budget. And the second is really, as companies start to prepare for peak, they're looking at their carrier base, and they're looking at how can we diversify and how can we create a portfolio, both monitoring obviously the cost and performance. And I think the third is around sourcing, where some of these critical supplies that companies rely on, especially in the manufacturing space, they've got intense competition now from some of the AI data center build outs. And so they're looking at complements for some of those supplies, because they can't absorb a 5x increase in the supply that a data center provider might be able to absorb, because the revenue that they can charge from the data center is worth a lot more.
Yeah, well, they probably have bigger buying power as well, too, right? And actually, you touched on three of the things that we're going to be talking about today. One is the visibility. Two is, well, you mentioned acronyms earlier, but we're going to talk a little bit about that. But three, the rare earth minerals. We're going to be talking about that when we talk about Greenland a little bit later on in the show. And when you're talking about sourcing, you have to understand where those materials are and what your options are and who you're up against and what their buying power is compared to yours as well. So you actually touched on all three things that we're going to talk about today. Now let's get to our first article. So this one is an interesting one, and I highly recommend everybody go and check it out. The World Economic Forum said 75% of supply chain executives have partial or fragmented visibility. Matt, we are in 2026. We are 6 months away from 2027. How is it possible that 75% still have partial or fragmented visibility? Can you help me out here? Because I feel like I've been talking about visibility for almost 10 years now.
I mean, the reality is that it's still blocked by the data layer, not the algorithms. And so if you've got real-time insights on bad data, you've got bad decisions. And so that doesn't surprise me at all, because the root cause is the underlying data is not accurate. And we talked about it a little bit, but you've got this data trapped in PDFs, it's trapped in people's heads, it's trapped in Excel spreadsheets. And the reason why it is the case is because supply chain is a network of networks where you're not just looking at your four walls, but you've got your thousands of suppliers' four walls, you've got your thousands of carriers, you've got your thousands of customers, and you've got you're even within your four walls, you've got multiple different systems and multiple different partners and warehouses. So it is a real challenge to actually have a standardized data layer. And up until now, there was really, when I say now, I mean in the last couple of years, there was really no way at scale to actually organize this data.
Right. Well, and a couple of things stood out for me in this particular article, and it was the fact that they had mentioned a couple of different vendors to actually solve for a couple of different things. But this goes back to the visibility problem, is the fact that the data is going to be siloed in a variety of different systems. And so then how do we reduce 75% if your data is fragmented and all over the place? And so that's one of the things that I thought was kind of funny, because they they said 75% have fragmented visibility, and then they went on to say that these would solve for it. But I don't think that that's actually the case. One other stat that they said was generative AI reduces supply chain costs by 3 to 4%. Now, the number is staggering. You think 3 to 4% is low, but it's $290 to $550 billion a year in supply chain. Does that number surprise you? Because I was shocked at the amount of money that they're saying generative AI can solve for.
When you look at it, the whole AI era, you mentioned 2010, I think you can probably go back to 2015 up until about 2022, 2023. that whole era was categorized by what we consider traditional or classical AI. Very good systems, but much more just basic predictive systems. At Uber, we used a lot of this. For example, when's my Uber car going to arrive? That's a perfect example of how you can use classical or traditional AI. But then with ChatGPT, you had the launch of generative AI. Mm-hmm. And so everybody now was, jumping on ChatGPT and typing a prompt and generating, a massive response. That era was valuable, and I think that's what the article is mentioning, specifically valuable to organizing data, but mm-hmm. it wasn't as valuable to running tasks on top of that data. And so in 2025, we entered a new era of AI, which is the agentic era. And the agentic era is really about AI doing all of the work on top of it. And now it's not fully replacing the human, we believe. You've got to have, especially for critical supply chain systems, you've got to have humans in the loop. But it does take a lot of the workload off of humans, at least the work that machines can be doing, like auditing and reviewing invoices, and puts that on these agents. And so I actually think the article, referencing generative AI, I think generative AI is just a drop in the bucket. And if I was to estimate what agentic AI will do for the supply chain, just given how much value is trapped in the supply chain due to bad data, I would say it's probably closer to 10%. And so if you estimate, global supply chain cost around 11 trillion, that number is probably closer to 1.1 trillion.
Wow, that's a big number. And you said humans in the loop. I was going to interrupt and say, pardon the pun. But if you want to learn more about Loop, we've got a QR code in the top right-hand corner, and you want to learn more about Matt, head over to that QR code and get some more information. Now, let's head over to the news desk. Diane and Julian, what are the top news stories for the week?
You look annoyed already.
Somebody tried to charge a trucker for something completely out of his hands.
But he got the last say. He won a huge fight over container detention fees.
Evergreen billed TCW $510 for the 3 days the Port of Siena was closed.
The DC Circuit backed the FMC unanimous.
If you can't physically return a container, they can't charge you like you chose not to.
Carriers now need real evidence their fees reflect actual costs. Keep your own records.
Next, U.S. ports are about to blow past their pandemic-era import record. Hackett's Global Port Tracker puts July at 2.47 million TEU.
Retailers front-loading ahead of August tariffs.
That's more containers hitting docks than warehouses can absorb smoothly.
NRF sees it cooling fast after July. Plan for a cliff, not a plateau. Last one, Hanjin launched Korea's first paid autonomous freight run. 25-ton truck, 118 kilometers, Gunsan Port to the Daejeon Mega Hub.
3 runs a week, and a safety operator still rides along. So it's not driverless, it's a government pilot with a person still in the seat.
Fair, but it's revenue freight, not a demo. That's the template other carriers will copy.
Every story today was really about who eats the risk when the system doesn't work as planned.
The trucker ate that cost for months before a court said otherwise.
And that truck in Korea still needs someone behind the wheel.
Sarah, all yours.
Awesome. Those are some really important topics. I just want to give a bit of a shout out to the one around the ports being busy ahead of the tariffs. I know that we're talking about AI, but they also talked about all of the risks. And I don't know if we're going to get to this Greenland article. And so we're going to post that in the comments. So if we don't get to it, everybody can go and take a look at it, because what they say in that article is global risk is visibility, coordination, and informed decision quality. And all of those stories, like they mentioned, has an element of risk, and you need to make sure that your supply chain operations are ready to handle that risk. All right, let's get to our second article, because we're already at 24 minutes, and I want to make sure that we get this one in. All right, let's talk about this one. So Gartner put out this particular article, and it says 37% of logistics leaders don't understand the value of AI. Matt, why is that? Because I'm talking to a lot of platforms right now, and like I mentioned earlier, they're saying that logistics and supply chain executives don't want to talk about AI anymore. They want to implement. They are ready to implement. They want to take action. But how are 37% of leaders still not understanding the value?
The number one issue is the the underlying systems that they have and they're built on. These things were built in the 90s, and it's like trying to drive a brand new sports car on like a really ugly dirt road. There was a big rain and there's like a massive mud puddle there, and you can't like run your new Ferrari through this puddle. So I think that the number one issue is you've got to get your systems up. And number two is supply chain leaders, probably of anyone in the company, understand risk better than anyone. And that means they are calculating, I understand the promise of AI, but what is going to be the impact on my operations, both from a resilience, but also from cost and economic benefit. And I think a lot of companies have not been able to quantify the economic benefit of deploying AI, and they're relying upon, in some cases, a generic horizontal model, whether it's produced from Anthropic or OpenAI. And those models, when hooked up to enterprise data and enterprise environments, they just do not work in the same capacity that a specialized model does. So I think that those are some of the topics that we see.
Yeah, well, and I'm showing this particular picture here because it agrees with you. It says limited value realized from existing technology investments. And so that's part of the hesitation for the 37%. But one of the things that this article talks about is digital maturity. What does that actually mean? And is our data ready? And are we ready for AI? Because with AI comes a governance component and a cultural component, right? Because we want our teams to use it, but we need to protect our data. And so I think there's a little bit of a push-pull from like the C-suite and with the leaders in the fact that everybody's going to use it anyway. We need to get ahead of this. Is our data ready? And are we digitally mature enough to raise our hand and say, yes, we're ready. Let's go ahead and do this.
Going back to, we're now in the agentic era of AI, and most companies are not deploying agents, and that's okay, because to do that they've got to have agent ready data. All of the systems and all the data were built for humans, not for agents.
Right.
And so there's a massive investment that's undergoing right now in some of the most important companies in the world, and certainly in the supply chain, to get their data agent ready. The second piece of that is you've got to actually have your change management and your organizational culture built around this new operating paradigm. And a lot of these companies, they don't know where to start there because they have these ideas, but they haven't actually put them in practice. And the number one limiter to actually having some of these deployments to be successful is the actual change management.
Right.
And so I think all of these things combined make it really challenging to get deployed. But the number one, the number one issue is getting the data ready. And then it's how do you deploy the agents on top of it? And then it's, okay, how do you actually have your organization ready for that type of change that's coming?
Yeah. And I brought this graphic up because I think it does a really, really good job of really showcasing whether you are digitally mature and ready for this and what it looks like if you're not. Like you might be at level 2. How do I get to level 5? What does that look like? Because I have these discussions all the time and everybody thinks that they're ready. But are we really ready? Are we having the discussions? Are we looking at our digital maturity? And then underneath this, it also talks about the success measures. So one of the challenges that it talks about earlier in this article is that they talk about how they've had really bad experiences previously with their technology investment, right? And so I really want to highlight the fact that this showcases the success measures because these are really, really important. If you skip one of these, then your technology investment isn't going to actually work out for you. And so I think that's a really, really good takeaway from this as well. Is there anything else that you would leave the audience with thinking about their AI journey and where they are today? I mean, a lot of people are panicking because they think that they're behind.
Well, if they're panicking because they think they're behind, most people are behind, and so the best time to start is now. And it's really, the agentic era of AI. You'll actually start seeing more and more of the rollout happen in 2027. So 2026 is really about getting your data and getting your systems ready for the agentic era to be rolled out. And I'd say most of the companies, most advanced organizations that we work with, they're in that stage. And so if you're in that stage, great. If you're not in that stage, be thinking about how quickly you can get into it. And the last piece I'll leave with is, at the end of the day, these are CapEx investments. And to justify CapEx investment to your CFO or whoever it is, you really have to be, from the day that you make this design, you've got to be thinking about the economic benefit and how you're measuring that economic benefit. And I would really push that. I would push that back to the vendor or the partner that you're evaluating. They should be providing that for you. And I think that more and more of the technology investment, especially around AI, will have to be justified based on the economic benefit that it's creating.
It absolutely will. And I highly recommend everybody go check out that article, because it does talk about the success metrics, but it also gives you a benchmark of where you are on the maturity scale to make sure that you are ready, or gives you an idea of what you need to do to get to that level of readiness. Want to give a shout out to Chandra over on our Instagram. She gave us our first fire emoji. They are loving the conversation. Matt, this has been great. I apologize to everybody. We did not get to the article about Greenland, but they are saying that it's a critical shipping route. And so if you don't know much about Greenland, go and check out that article. The article is in the comments for you. Also want to let you know, new tariffs are coming into place, 50% on some of the stuff that's coming into the US from Canada. That is breaking news as of last night. And for next week, we're going to be playing one of our popular episodes, because we are taking vacation here at Thoughts and Coffee. Matt, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you to everybody who joined us for this episode. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Sarah. Good to see you.